All right, let's explore this job order costing scenario. I'll read the information that you can see right here. It says Biden Home Decor Company uses a job order cost system to collect the cost of its interior decorating business. Each client's consultation is treated as a separate job. Overhead is applied to each job based on the number of decorator hours incurred, and listed below are the data for the current year. Okay, so to the left of my mouse, what you see is they give you estimated overhead, actual overhead, estimated decorator hours, and actual decorator hours. And they give you one other piece of information. They say the company uses operating overhead in place of manufacturing overhead, which makes sense. They're not a manufacturing business. Now, they also provide us with the list of the accounts used by the company. Okay, so you sort of want to look at these. And they do have some manufacturing accounts, but they're a home decorating business. All right, so now let's solve the problem, which I've hidden under here. So the first part of this question asks us to determine what's the predetermined overhead. And you simply take the estimated overhead of $1 million and divide it by the estimated decorator hours, because predetermined overhead is always based on your estimates or predetermined amounts. So if you look up here, you can see I've done the formula, or I'll hit the F2 here once I set up my my function key correctly. Okay, so if I hit the F2, you can see the C3 and C5. It's doing the math for you. Again, this is just Excel. Okay, then it wants you to determine the journal entry to apply overhead for the year. Well, using the accounts at the right, what we see is they have a work in process inventory account, but they also have a service contracts in process, and that probably makes more sense to use. So we'll use a service contract in process, and then we need to use that operating overhead account in place of manufacturing overhead. Now, I came up with $995,000. How did I come up with that? You simply take D times E. Well, what's D? D is actual overhead, right, times the predetermined overhead rate that you determined. Okay, this is actually what's the predetermined overhead, and some people might actually put the word rate in there. Okay, so I'll add that. Now, that's $995,000. Again, hit the F2, you can see my math. Take the actual hours times the predetermined rate, and that's where we came up with $995,000. Okay, then the last part of this just simply says, what was the overhead applied? Well, with overhead, or how much overhead was over applied or under applied. Okay, and what you have to do is compare actual overhead to what was expected. So if I hit the F2, what we see is, well, the actual overhead was $1,024,800, right? $1,024,800. And if we look at what the overhead applied was, which we already calculated by taking, by taking the actual hours times the predetermined rate, which was $995. When we compare the $995,000 to the $1,024,000, you see that where we over applied or under applied. Well, we were under applied because the applied amount is less than the actual overhead. And that's this problem, everyone.